This big, beautiful bill is turning out to be a big, beautiful nightmare, huh? So, let's take bets. Gonna pass? I mean, we all better hope it doesn't pass. I don't want it to pass. It's really gonna hurt our country and all of us in it. Well, not all of us. If you're in a certain tax bracket, it's certainly going to benefit you. I don't know. Could we have one day of some good news? One day of something good happening? One day. Just one. Because I don't know about y'all, but there's not been a good day since January 20th. But taking bets. What's going on with the big bill?
I'll never understand Maga's enthusiasm with the big beautiful bill, because in reality, it's just a loaded weapon pointed at poor folks in red states.
Now they're calling this the big beautiful bill. This bill does not benefit the poor, middle class, or marginalized. It does not benefit us at all. This bill benefits one group of people, and that's the rich. It benefits the 1%. And yet and still, you have people who are rooting for it that are in these groups. This is going to kick millions off Medicaid, kick millions off SNAP benefits. And these are benefits that people are rooting for this bill. These are the people who are going to lose it. It makes no sense to me at all. You should be calling your local congressman, your local congresswoman. You should be calling your local senators and telling them that you do not approve of this bill. If this bill passed the Senate, which it looks like it's going to do, and go to the president's desk, it's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose Medicaid, that are going to lose SNAP benefits, and you even are going to have people losing their jobs in the private sector. It makes no sense to me at all.
This is the home stretch for the big beautiful bill, and I have been saying every day that this cannot pass, but let me re-highlight how disgusting these cuts are within this bill. First of all, it raises the deficit by $3.3 trillion. $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid. So all of the millions of Americans, 13 to 16 million Americans that rely on Medicaid for healthcare, all of the institutions that take Medicaid when you're going to see doctors, those will cease to exist. It will no longer be here. $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid literally ensures that Medicaid will not exist. ICE will now receive about $150 million in new funding because we all know that ICE was about to lose all of its funding. SNAP benefits are going to be basically impossible to get. The amount of cuts that are put on SNAP benefits is absolutely insane. And a lot of MAGA relies on those SNAP benefits. Federal funding in regards to rural communities for like energy and stuff, this completely taxes any attempt to have clean energy. Any attempt that you have for renewable energy, it taxes it because we know the Republicans do not care about the climate. There's going to be no AI regulation for at least like a decade. We have seen how bad AI has gotten within the last 6 months. Imagine that not being regulated for 10 years. Grad programs, about 80% of grad students fund their graduate studies with grad loans. Not going to exist. They won't exist anymore. And all of this is like Donald Trump's first term with the TCJA so that rich people don't pay their fucking taxes. This bill, when it passes, is going to be a detriment to me, to you, and to every American that is not within the top 1%. This bill can't pass. It cannot pass.
I'm just going to take this moment to say I told you so. Watch this. Project 2025 wants to add work requirements to Medicaid. And then I got so many comments like this one. Project 2025 is not Trump's agenda. These are recommendations only. Just stop with these videos until if Trump uses this. He did. And Brent says, Lala, why is this being talked about when this project is not a part of his plan? But it was. Now, would you look at this? A closer look at the Medicaid work requirements. isn't that exactly what I said was going to happen? Isn't that exactly what was in Project 2025? And I said this is what was going to happen. And I said it's last November. You guys didn't believe me at all. I said this last November. And just for reference, this is from June 20th. Okay? So it's in the big, beautiful bill, the Medicaid work requirements. And then in the same video, I said this somewhat. Here is how that ends up working out in practice. The vast majority of poor adults are actually already working. So you can't actually further incentivize something that people are already doing. Now, once again, that's what I said last November. And here's the same article from June 2025. Most Medicaid adults under age 65 are working already without a requirement in place. So just like I've been shouting from the rooftops since last November, work requirements don't work. In fact, they end up being more expensive, which we've seen. If you look above here in Arkansas and Georgia, it's challenging to operationalize. And just in these two states, they had trouble with. We're going to institute it across the whole entire country. And it's going to cost a lot of taxpayer money to make people work when they are working already. So do y'all believe me now?
If you're a Republican, I want to know this answer. I want to know why. Why you haven't asked if almost 12 million people on Medicaid are going to lose their insurance. Why haven't you asked the one basic important question you should ask? If nearly 12 million people are going to lose their insurance, how many are going to die because they don't have insurance? How many? 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000. How come none of you're voting for this bill? You're voting, and some of you are cheering this bill on. You're not voting for it. You're a Republican. You're going, yeah, go, 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 go. Not one of you has asked, wait a minute, if we kick nearly 12 million people off of their insurance, how many people will die? And that's why I look at some of you and just with disgust, because you are so proud to be pushing this bill or voting for a bill that is literally going to kill Americans, and you haven't addressed it one time. That's just beyond sad.
The next page in 2031, anyone making less than 15,000 sees that. Check this out. I thought this was a mistake. I thought I was not reading this correctly. An increase in their taxes of 74.3%. And from 15,000 to 30,000 of 20.6%. Is that correct? Or is that, did you guys make a mistake, or is that
No mistake in the numbers.
The people at the lower income brackets are getting screwed over by a Republican majority that doesn't give a damn about them. You know, I'm somebody that was supposed to not go to college. I ended up working at Subway and Target. I had zero health care. And to me, you would tell somebody in my place, you know what? We're helping you out. Just giving you a little bit. But the billionaires are the ones that make the most money and deserve the most help. That's your logic. But you all want to tout a tax plan that increases taxes on people making under $30,000 a year, the folks that are struggling, and then cutting their Medicaid on top of that. That's the most insulting thing I've ever heard in my life.
All lawmakers need to be making the minimum wage for the districts and states that they represent. All protections for insider trading need to be removed, and the entire 1% needs to be composted. Period. I said what I said.
I need to know what has so many people with microphones so confident that Republican lawmakers are going to screw up their chances at re-election in 2026 if they vote for the big beautiful bill. Is it because you've seen a few comments in a few comment sections of people claiming to be Republican that say that they aren't in favor of this bill? Number one, if those Republican lawmakers were concerned at their chances at not getting re-elected at all, they wouldn't vote for the big beautiful bill. Number two, what makes you so convinced that the person who gets the majority of the votes in 2026 is the one who's going to win the election? There's a Republican Texas representative that recently went on the news and said that Republican lawmakers know the peril of not voting for this big, beautiful bill. This is a quote. They know that their constituents back home will not reelect them if they don't vote for this bill. As a Texas representative, I know that he's telling the truth because I'm in Texas and I know these people. I know these Republicans here. They're all in. And it doesn't matter if they're all in because they haven't read all 1,000 pages and understand what's actually in the bill and how it's going to hurt them. But it's really just because they're all in. They're all in. No caveats. Don't y'all understand? Aren't y'all getting it by now? These people claim to be spiritual beings because they are evangelical Christians, but in reality, they are capitalist nihilists. They are Machiavellian. It's a Machiavellian horror show. They don't care about anything except winning and the promise of making more money. It doesn't matter if they're actually going to make money. It's just the promise. This fantasy land that we're living in right now, that Republicans are not going to get reelected because they voted for the big beautiful bill, is just that. It's a fantasy. Don't forget that these are people that have told me personally over and over again since January that they would watch the president, somebody on the steps of the White House, and still follow him to the grave. That hasn't changed. And you know what else hasn't changed, despite the fact that we so desperately want it to? That Congress's actions are a reflection of the Trump administration, 100%. They act in accordance to what the Trump administration wants. They are not two separate entities as much as we want to try and make them right now. What Trump wants goes on Capitol Hill. What Capitol Hill goes, everyone on the ground level, every baseline Trump voter is on board with. We have got to stop focusing our spiritual and intellectual energy on trying to flip MAGA voters. It's not going to happen. The only way we're going to see a blue wave in the midterms is if we get more people out to vote that didn't vote in the general election last November.
This bill is going to leave almost 12 million people uninsured. It's going to add almost $4 trillion to the national debt. It's going to cut Medicaid by $930 billion. And it's going to be one of the largest food assistance cuts to veterans, kids, and working class families that we've ever seen in the history of this country. And unfortunately, people will support it. They'll think that it's going to help them, when in fact this big, beautiful bill is one of the worst things that can happen to working class families in this country. Many of these initiatives are aimed at giving tax cuts, funding tax cuts to billionaires, to people who have so much money that they will not be affected by any of the things that happen with this bill. They won't be negatively impacted at all. Those who will be negatively impacted are some way, somehow advocating for this bill, advocating for it to be passed, advocating for this to come to fruition. Understand that this bill is going to reshape and redefine what life looks like for many, many people in a negative way. In a negative way. It's going to hurt people. In this platform, I talk a lot about how are you helping people? Who are you helping and how? This bill is going to hurt people. And if you're someone who believes that it'll somehow help, ask yourself, how is it going to help people? How? Read it for yourself. Look into what it does and realize that there's nothing in this bill to help the majority of Americans. And if you are a Republican, please call your representative, because red states are actually going to be affected the most.
Hey y'all. So I'm keeping an eye on what's going on with this bill that they're calling beautiful. Bless all of our hearts, y'all. Because you do realize we might be voting for the last time, right? If this one big beautiful bill passes, baby, we won't be worrying about the next election because, well, there won't be a next election. Yes, sugar. It's dressed up in red, white, and lies. But let me tell you what's really in this bill. The little bit of a couple hundred pages that I've already started to read. The bill says in one section that he can delay or cancel elections legally. He can ignore Supreme Court rulings. He can fire folks just for not being loyal enough to him. Judges, powerless. We saw the SCOTUS already take care of that. Protests, yeah, you'll be tracked and criminalized. Your vote, absolutely suppressed. Your speech, well, your speech will be flagged. And your VPN, when you work from home, it's going to be watched. If you're black, queer, an educator, or just someone who likes telling the truth out loud, this bill, oh baby, is coming for you. This don't break the law. No, not at all. It rewrites the law. So next time y'all say the courts will stop him or it won't be that bad, just know the bill says otherwise. This ain't fear-mongering, because I know y'all gonna try to come in my comments and say so. This is actually a warning. The kind your granny gave you before the storm hit. Well, baby, the storm is getting ready to hit. So why don't you just go ahead and share it, speak up, and show up now, because if this big, beautiful bill passes, well, sweetie pie, the next vote, it'll be your last.
Listen, we don't need to stress about this big, beautiful bill. And I don't even like to call it a big, beautiful bill, but that's what they're calling it. You know what I say about the Republicans and the GOP and the Magas that are all behind this big, beautiful bill that they want to pass? Let them pass the big, beautiful bill. Don't stress. Go out and have a swim. Go out and have a walk. Go to the movies. Enjoy your life. Don't stress about everything that this guy does. Don't. Because actually, we need to let them do the things that they want to do to show that it's going to be a huge failure. I'd love to be proven wrong. If the big, beautiful bill turned out to be a good thing, I'll eat crow. But I know I'm not going to. Because almost 12 million people are going to lose their health care, their health coverage. It's a fact. That's what's going to happen. And you want to know who probably some of the biggest candidates for that health insurance, the people who currently use it, are? Maga. Republicans in red states. They use Medicaid. They're going to lose Medicaid in many, many of these places. We're going to add $3 trillion to our debt. It's a fact. All the economists say it. Don't argue with the Magas. Don't argue with the Republicans that that's not the case. Let it pass. Let the big, beautiful bill pass. Give them what they want. Because you know what's going to happen? That's the final nail in the coffin of the Republican Party. The GOP will be destroyed. They do this, it's like anything else. When a majority of the population is negatively affected by something, you're done. I famously like to say, remember George Bush Sr.? He only served one term. He was after Reagan. And the reason he served one term, he said he wasn't going to have any new taxes, no new taxes, and then bam, he increased taxes and they booted him. They booted him out of office. Let the Republicans, let MAGA, let them pass the big, beautiful bill. Let them, and let's sit back and watch. But actually, let's prepare, because this will be a breeze in 2026, the midterms. We're going to show them what we think of what they did, because we can always fix things later.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah.
Do you think this big, beautiful bill is going to pass?
Yeah, I think so.
Why?
Well, the procedural vote that happened in the Senate yesterday is a pretty good indication of what the final voting lines are going to be. And despite the theatrics of a few Republican senators like Collins and Murkowski, who just like to pretend like they're going to vote against their party, I don't think that there's any real opposition from this in the Republican Senate. They've all made their bed a long time ago and voted consistently along party lines for the last several administrations. So I don't think that's going to change now.
What are the implications if it does get passed?
Well, like any budget bill, it's pretty complex and there's a lot of moving parts to it. To my understanding, there's basically two big parts that are going to be affecting, the average American. One is that the bill is continuing and making permanent the 2017 era Trump tax cuts, and the other is cuts to Medicaid. So basically what it boils down to is that low-income households, so those making less than $30,000 a year, are going to be receiving some token benefits that I think the Trump administration is hoping will distract them from the major downsides. Those benefits are a few $100s a year in tax savings in the form of a minor increase to the standard deduction, as well as a removal of taxation on some things like tips and certain overtime pay, which I suspect will be taken away at a later date in future budget bills if Republicans are still in power at the time. So, overall savings of a couple $100s a year. On the downside, though, is huge cuts to Medicaid, which the Congressional Budget Office estimates can have an impact of anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000 a year in lost benefits to those same low-income households. And when you combine that with other things that have been taken away by the Trump administration through executive orders and other measures, for example, cuts to the Department of Education and regulatory bodies, are going to have these huge impacts on low-income households that far outweigh any benefit that those households are going to see. On the contrast, when you look at high-income households, and especially those in the top 5 and 1% of the population, what we see instead is tremendous tax cuts that will be saving them tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions, in the very high range, with very little comparative downside. So what this budget bill is just a way to shift wealth from an already impoverished population to the ultra wealthy, which is, standard MO for the Republicans at this point.
If you voted for Donald Trump because you wanted no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, you might want to listen to what's in the big, beautiful bill.
Now, I just want to show our colleagues something that was put together by the Committee for a Responsible Budget. And if you look at the blue, you can see for each year, starting this year, 2025, 2006, the blue is what Senate Republicans claim their bill will add to the deficit. The red is how much more it will actually add to the deficit. So at the end of this 10-year period, what you see is Senate Republicans are claiming that their bill will add $441 billion, which is still a big number, but the real number when you do honest accounting, when you add up all of these, it's $4.2 trillion, a much bigger number. Now, I do want to point something out on this chart. I think everybody watching should understand it. If you look at these orange parts, these are the additional deficits from tax cuts. Starting here in year 2029, 2030, you'll see that they actually do start going down. Why is that? It's because the tax cut that President Trump promised for no tax on tips, they phased those out. This is all just a make-believe ruse. Yeah, we start providing no tax on tips, but those disappear. The tax breaks for wealthy people, they go on, and they go on not just for this 10-year period, but the reason they violate all the rules of reconciliation is because they keep going on after that. And as Senator Merkley said, if you look at the entire history of the Byrd rule, that's Senator Byrd, it was designed to make sure that 51 senators through a vote could not make these kind of permanent changes in any area. But specifically, they were worried about areas that increased the national deficit and debt. So what Republican senators are doing is not only misleading the American people, but they're violating the entire structure that carved out this special procedure that we call reconciliation for the budget, which was intended to lower deficits and debts, not have them go on forever. As Senator Merkley has pointed out, I think if you look over a 30-year period, we're talking about $35 trillion plus additional to the debt. And Republicans want to hide that from the American people. That is budget fraud, pure and simple, and it is a violation of the rules of the United States Senate, this whole special structure that was created not to blow bigger holes in the debt and deficits, but to actually try to constrain them. Wow. So shame on everybody who's part of this fraud on the American people. I yield back my time.
Unbelievable, right? So you voted for him because you wanted the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime. And he's only giving you a little bit of time with that. And then after that, it goes away. But him and his billionaire friends, they get to live forever in the golden age.
I will.
I found it very interesting that you pointed out that these tax provisions for the middle class, no tax on tips, is phased out, and no tax on overtime is phased out. And what you're saying, I believe, is that when they put into this bill that a tax break is ending, they're saying that it doesn't cost any more in the following years.
So they are certainly saying that their current policy baseline that they want us to make believe about would say that this wouldn't cost them. In other words, if they extended this, it wouldn't cost anything. It is interesting to note, not only does that expose the fraud behind the current policy baseline, but they made a very deliberate choice. Even though they now say that they can make these tax cuts permanent and still comply with the rules, they decided to make the tax cuts for very rich people permanent. But even though they say it's not going to cost anything anymore to provide, tax cuts with no tax on tips, they're phasing those out. And there are all of these areas are where President Trump made promises that he was going to take care of some working people. Well, man, those go away fast. Wow. Tax cuts for the rich, they go on for not just the full 10 years, but they keep going, which is why this is a violation of the entire reconciliation process.
So I find two things very interesting. They're saying if something was in the law that they passed in 2017 and it expires, they're pretending it doesn't expire and therefore extending doesn't cost anything. But in their own bill, when they say a provision expires, they're saying, no, it really does die, and therefore we're saving money in the years after. How is those two things possibly consistent?
Clearly they're not. I mean, this is literally magical thinking. This is why Republican Congressman Schweihart called this, or Chip Roy called this fairy dust, and why the Congressman from Arizona said this was pure intellectual and economic fraud. That's what it is. That's the bottom line.
Well, I really thank the senator from Maryland also pointing out that President Trump, he did, when he was campaigning, say he was fighting for ordinary families. But at his inauguration, who do you have standing behind him? Not champions for health care or champions for housing. No. Certainly not champions for nutrition or education, but in fact a series of like 5 or 6 billionaires. And now you're telling me that in this bill, and I want to make sure the American people understand this, the provisions that were sweeteners to say we were helping working people are being phased out, but they're keeping all the tax breaks for billionaires.
Well, you're right. It was right down this hall, actually, that President Trump was sworn in, and he said it was going to be a new golden age for working people. Well, as you're pointing out, and this chart clearly shows, and their own budget reveals, it's clearly a golden age for billionaires and people who make a lot of money. And in this bill, they make sure that that golden age for very rich people goes on forever. Wow. They had a few little crumbs that they were throwing for a little while, we can see, to others, but just for a little while and just small amounts compared to the golden age for the billionaires.
Wow. Highway robbery at its finest. Thank you, Senator Chris Van Hollen, for breaking it down for the Trump supporters, because guess what? They don't understand what you just said. As a matter of fact, if you are a Trump supporter, go back and rewatch this video, because there's no real simple way to put this. The no tax on tips, the no tax on overtimes, those were just breadcrumbs to get your vote, but that's not going to last forever like their tax cuts.
I'm watching the Associated Press stream the reading of the bullshit bill, and you should see the chat. And you should see MAGA in the chat. Like, pass the bill, pass the bill. Oh, look at the libs. You know, they're getting all these L's. It's not libs that are getting the L's. It's the Republicans. It's the red states are getting these L's. You're losing like 1/3 of your rural hospitals, okay? You're losing like almost 1/3 or more of people on Medicaid or Medicare. I mean, it's at almost $1 trillion of tax cuts now, okay? You're gonna lose another 1/3 of your retirement nursing home facility. So I hope all of you MAGA that like to take your fucking family members that you fucking don't like and you like to stick them in nursing homes like far, far, far away, I hope you have some room in your house to take care of them. Or I hope you have the money out of your pocket to take them care of them. Or your inheritance that you were going to get, but you're not going to get now because it's going to be taking care of your fucking family members that Medicaid was taking care of. So get ready for those foreclosures. Get ready for those 401ks and those Roth IRAs to evaporate. Okay? Because you're not getting any of that money. Like, I cannot wait till Republican states get hit where these people cannot eat and see how they fucking lose their minds. They're going to blame the Dems, even though they fucking voted for this. They were the ones that said, please pass the big, beautiful bill. They're going to blame the Democrats because they cannot take any accountability for themselves. They're going to say some shit like, oh, the economy was bad. This is not our fault. This is the Dems' fault. We're not cutting your Medicaid. They have all these people that are on fraud. So all the people that you guys, again, you Republicans, that are going to get cut off this motherfucking bill because you voted for this shit. I wonder how you're going to twist and turn into pretzels to try to fucking blame somebody else and not your fucking selves. Again, 1/3 of all the shit that you need is going to be fucking gone. You vote against your own interest in the interest of bigotry. Serves you fucking right. It serves you fucking right.
Trump's big, beautiful bill. Are you guys familiar with it? Let's get into it. Do you realize that Trump is pushing to pass this bill by July 4th? This bill has so many cuts that not only hurts the lower class, it hurts the middle class. The cuts will include cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, cuts to the unemployment, and cuts to the student loan hardship and forgiveness programs. Now, how does that hurt the lower and the middle class? Medicare and Medicaid. How many seniors do you have out here that lives the middle class lifestyle, however, will lose their health insurance? How many disabled people do you have out here that will lose their Medicaid insurance? Then you have the unemployment. How many middle class workers that out here that works hard every day, that sometimes have the plants and other companies go on shutdown during certain seasons, that rely on the unemployment benefits? Well, those benefits will no longer exist. So now we have homelessness. Then you have how many students you have that is striving to get their degrees, and once they receive their degrees, they have to get out here and try to get in the workforce to earn wages in order to pay back those loans. They need the hardship and the forbearance period in order to land jobs to pay back the loans that they received. Well, that will no longer exist according to Trump's big, beautiful bill. What's beautiful about this bill is how much the billionaires will receive. And they will receive this incentive up front. 1.5% up front. Billions of dollars day one once this bill goes in effect. So you tell me, who is Trump helping? The lower class, middle class, or the billionaires? This big, beautiful bill will only help Trump and his billionaires. People, please wake up. We have to do something to stop this big, beautiful bill today.
Senate Republicans right now are looking like they're not going to have the votes to be able to pass the big, beautiful bill. But let me just tell you what the Republicans are hiding in the big, beautiful bill. They have no problem telling you that they're going to cut $800 billion in Medicaid over the next 10 years. They have no problem telling you that they're going to cut SNAP benefits. They're going to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. They have no problem with telling you that they're going to explode the deficit by over another $5 trillion with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act like they did the last time. But here's what they're hiding. What they're really hiding is that they're not going to allow states to regulate AI, one of the biggest factors in the crisis that we have for our climate. They will not let states regulate AI for 10 years after this bill. It's going to allow monopolies in the tech sector to continue to thrive under Trump's administration, and it's going to continue to have the U.S. look out of touch on the global scale as more regulations and more research is coming out about AI, its effect on the climate, and how other countries are looking to address this disaster. The United States is not going to do it. What they're also going to bury in the details is that one of the most pressing issues of the 2024 election cycle, illegal immigration, something that the vast majority of the country look to say, we don't want violent criminals who are not supposed to be in this country. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to make it harder for immigrants to come into this country legally. They're going to extend the process. They're going to make the fees outrageous on immigrants coming into this country. And so we care about immigration in this country because we were all at one point immigrants. They are our neighbors. They helped build our cities along with the slaves that we've still never repaid, but that's besides the point. But let's make it perfectly clear. Legal immigration is going to be significantly harder if this iteration of the big, beautiful bill passes. AI regulation will not happen for 10 years on a statewide level, for 10 years. If this bill gets passed, it is an absolute no.
Hey, so I'm recording this at 3:15 in the morning, which means the Senate has adjourned for the night, but they're set to reconvene in the morning, and when they reconvene in the morning, they're going to be voting on Trump's so-called one big beautiful bill. Among the other things snuck into the 900 pages of this bill are a collective trillions of dollars in cuts for things like Medicaid and SNAP and energy assistance programs and tuition assistance programs. And these trillions of dollars of cuts are being used to pay for a tax cut that only helps the ultra wealthy. It's estimated that if this bill passes, up to 12 million people will be kicked off their health care, hospitals will close across the country, and the effects of the other provisions in this bill are too numerous to count in this video. The overwhelming likelihood is that this bill is going to pass with a slim majority, as only 2 Republicans have committed to voting no. Rand Paul of Kentucky and Tom Tillis of North Carolina are the only 2 Republicans, along with all 45 other Democratic senators and both independent senators. So since with this vote we effectively have 51 Americans cutting life-saving benefits for 300 million other Americans, I think it's important to remind everybody by name who these people are, where they're from, how much they are worth, and when their seats are up for re-election. First off is Jim Banks from the state of Indiana. He is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $400,000 and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. John Barrasso from the state of Wyoming is planning to vote yes on this bill. He is worth $8 million and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Marsha Blackburn from the state of Tennessee is worth $1.4 million. She is planning to vote yes on this bill and her seat is up for re-election in 2030. John Boozman from the state of Arkansas is planning to vote yes on this bill. He is worth $3.6 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Katie Britt from the state of Alabama is worth $4.4 million. She is planning to vote yes, and her seat is up for re-election in 2028. Ted Budd from North Carolina is worth $7.5 million. He is planning to vote yes on this bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Shelley Moore Capito from the state of West Virginia is planning to vote yes on this bill. She is worth $4.6 million and her seat is up for re-election in 2026. Bill Cassidy from the state of Louisiana is planning to vote yes on this bill. He is worth $460,000 and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Susan Collins from Maine is worth $6 million. She has not committed to voting no on the bill yet, and she is up for re-election in 2026. John Cornyn from the state of Texas is worth $1.4 million. He is planning to vote yes on this bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Tom Cotton from the state of Arkansas is planning to vote yes on this bill. He is worth $680,000, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Kevin Kramer from the state of North Dakota is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $896,000, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Mike Crapo from the state of Idaho is worth $3.5 million. He's planning to vote yes on the bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Ted Cruz from the state of Texas is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $9.5 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. John Curtis from the state of Utah is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $31 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Steve Daines from Montana is worth $21 million. He is planning to vote yes on the bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Joni Ernst from the state of Iowa is planning to vote yes on the bill. She is worth $400,000, and she is up for re-election in 2026. Deb Fisher from the state of Nebraska is planning to vote yes on the bill. She is worth $4.8 million, and her seat is up for re-election in 2030. Lindsey Graham from the state of South Carolina is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $1 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Chuck Grassley from the state of Iowa is worth $5.6 million. He is planning to vote yes on the bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Bill Haggerty from the state of Tennessee is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $55 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Josh Hawley from the state of Missouri has not committed to voting yes or no on the bill. He is worth $2.4 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. John Hoeven from the state of North Dakota is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $53 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. John Husted from the state of Ohio is worth $5 million. His seat is up for re-election in 2028, and he is planning to vote yes on the bill. Cindy Hyde-Smith from the state of Mississippi is worth $1.3 million. She is planning to vote yes on the bill, and her seat is up for re-election in 2026. Ron Johnson from the state of Wisconsin has not committed to voting yes or no on the bill yet, but he is worth $54 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Jim Justice from the state of West Virginia is planning to vote yes on the bill. He was previously worth $500 million, but apparently due to debts he is now worth negative $1 billion, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. John Kennedy from the state of Louisiana is planning to vote yes on the bill, and he is worth $16 million. His seat is up for re-election in 2028. James Lankford from the state of Oklahoma is worth about $798,000. He is planning to vote yes on the bill, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Mike Lee from the state of Utah is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $391,000, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Cynthia Lummis from the state of Wyoming is planning to vote yes on the bill. She is worth $14.9 million, and she is up for re-election in 2026. Roger Marshall from the state of Kansas is planning to vote yes. He is worth $6 million, and he is up for re-election in 2026. Mitch McConnell from the state of Kentucky is worth $51 million. He is planning to vote yes, and he is up for re-election in 2026, but he is retiring. But, you can still vote for a Democrat in his place. It's not illegal. Dave McCormick from the state of Pennsylvania is planning to vote yes on the bill. He is worth $123 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Ashley Moody from the state of Florida is planning to vote yes on the bill. She is worth $4.4 million, and her seat is up for re-election in 2026. Jerry Moran from the state of Kansas is planning to vote yes on the bill. They are worth $1.9 million, and their seat is up for re-election in 2028. Bernie Moreno from the state of Ohio is voting yes on the bill. His net worth is estimated to be between $44 million and $250 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Mark Wayne Mullen from the state of Oklahoma is a yes on the bill. He is worth $65 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Lisa Murkowski from the state of Alaska has flip-flopped harder on if she's going to vote yes or no on this bill, harder than anybody else. But she is not a yes or a no right now, and she is worth $2.5 million, and her seat is up for re-election in 2028. Pete Ricketts from the state of Nebraska is a yes. He is worth $180 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Jim Rich from Idaho is planning to vote yes. He is worth $4.1 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Mike Rounds from South Dakota is planning to vote yes. He is worth $8.9 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. Eric Schmidt from Missouri is planning to vote yes. He is worth $1 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Rick Scott from Florida is planning to vote yes. He is worth $552 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Tim Scott from South Carolina is planning to vote yes. He is worth $803,000, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Tim Sheehy from Montana is planning to vote yes. He is worth $152 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2030. Dan Sullivan from Alaska is planning to vote yes. He is worth $9.6 million, and his seat is up for re-election in 2026. John Thune from South Dakota is worth $725,000. He's planning to vote yes, and his seat is up for re-election in 2028. Tommy Tuberville from the state of Alabama, who is worth $12 million, is planning to vote yes. His seat is up for re-election in 2026, but he will be running for governor of Alabama, so you can still vote against him. Roger Wicker from Mississippi is planning to vote yes. He is worth $662,000, and his seat is up for re-election, I believe, in 2030. Finally, Todd Young from the state of Indiana is worth $91,000 due to debts, apparently, but he is up for re-election in 2028, and he is planning to vote yes.